All right. Welcome, everyone. We're live. So I just would love to begin by just giving everyone a shout out for being here, for being a part of Feminist Funded and the important work that Feminist Funded does. And especially, I want a warm welcome to our panelists. My name is Junemarie Justus, and I'm the founder of the Acorn Project and a very proud board member of Women's Funding Network. Someone was just requesting that we pause because folks are still coming into the room from the main session, which if you had a chance to listen to Vanessa Daniels and a few of the other fierce feminist women who were really just sharing some amazing insights and energy around what this is about and this moment and making sure that we're truly intersectional and how we approach this. And it was deeply inspiring. So yes, I do want to give folks a minute to hop into the session. And hopefully we will have Monique join us. She's working through getting on the platform. Let's see. Okay, we have about 3 more minutes before our actual time, so we'll give folks a couple seconds. Dawn, thank you for taking the time. I know you're on the road and doing multiple presentations today and squeezing this in, so I really appreciate you making this a priority.
You're welcome. I have to tell you, I'm sitting in the Carlisle, Iowa City Hall in an extra office that they have, which was a bank. So right in front of me, you can't see it, but there's this huge safe door. I wonder what's in there. That's the part that I'm like, oh, I'd love to go in there and see what it is, but probably shouldn't.
Maybe that's symbolic.
I don't know.
For today, right? We're trying to crack that safe open and make sure that we're funding the initiatives, the grassroots that we need to be funding. So that'll be inspiration for you.
Yeah.
At that safe, untapped potential. Amalia, were you able to get Monique help with the platform? Is she?
You know, we got her registered and I texted her to see if she needed any help and I haven't heard. She does have 2 littles. So I don't know if something's happened with the kids. And of course you hear my soon to be 1-year-old in the background.
Yes. And thank you too. Dawn, you jumped on a couple minutes after Amalia, but she has her little Morgan, who's the cutest little guy, by the way, homesick. So kind of, on point for our discussion. But yeah, she's rocking it like mamas do. Making it work. And Loira, you have a couple of little ones too, don't you?
Yes, I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old.
All right. So everyone's busy.
Yep, definitely have my hands full with those 2.
Mine used to be little. They're 35. Let's see, 35, 30, and 26.
Oh, they're the same age.
Somewhere in there. I may not have even gotten them right.
Your children are the exact same age as my children, all 3 of them, except my oldest is 34, right? So
Well,
Close.
I think my oldest is not 35 yet, and she would probably have a nervous breakdown if she knew that I just told you all that she was 35. So that'll be our secret. But I have grandchildren, so.
Those are fun.
Yep, and they're all under 3, so.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're starting to get a few folks in the room. So I think, and it's just a minute after 9. So I think I'm going to go ahead and begin. So those of you who were on the first introduction, thank you for your patience. My name's Junemarie Justus, and I am the president and founder of the Acorn Project and a very proud member of the Women's Funding Network Board. This organization has come together to put this program together today, this conference, and brought together really inspiring voices. And we're looking forward to some challenging conversations and some energy around, addressing the issues that we all see as at the forefront of our current social situation. So I thank you again for being here. From wherever you're coming from, we have people joining us from all over across the United States and around the world. So thank you to those who have made this a priority and been here today. I want to get started with the content that we have for this morning. Well, it's morning for me here. And again, I'm Junemarie Justus, she, her. And if there's anything that you would like to ask to our panelists, please feel free to put it in the Q&A or the chat. And what we'd like to do is begin with the trailer. You are in the session, Through the Night, Childcare in America. So go ahead and begin the conversation by watching this beautiful clip from Loira Limbal's film, Through the Night. Give me 1 second, it takes a minute to load.
Come on, Mama, time to get up. Come on. Morning, baby. Noah, time to get up. I've been doing this for 22 years. I have all different types of families in my daycare. I have some that comes in at 6 o'clock in the morning that works to 8:30 at night. I have some that comes from 3:30 to 12:30 at night. I have some that comes in overnight. I see a lot of parents come in and break down. They don't want to do this, but they need to work and take care of their family. See you later. All right, baby, have a good day. Be careful. This is the way the world is set up at this point.
I never really thought of overnight childcare till I had to use it.
I've been working 7 days, almost 2 months. If I'm not working one job, I'm working another job. Hi, Mommy.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Love you guys very much. It's not just a job. This is really our life. My children, ever since they was the age of 2 years old, they had to share me with other children. I remember my children saying, Mommy, why do they have to come first?
Mommy!
As parents, you make sacrifices. It's not their fault. So I just do what I can. It's not easy, but eventually I'll sleep.
Do we love each other?
Yeah.
I didn't hear you.
Yeah.
Do we love each other? It's okay.
And you have to be careful. If you continue to have numbness, you need surgery.
Uh-oh. This work is hard. I don't want to stop doing what I'm doing because I feel like if I lay down, I'm so tired I might not get back up.
Wow. Thank you. I know no matter how many times I see that, it still tugs at my heartstrings. So to kick off this conversation, I am joined by the amazing Loira Limbal, the documentary filmmaker, and so grateful to her for this piece. I'm joined by Dr. Amalia Luxardo, who is the president of the Southern Arizona Women's Foundation, and the incomparable Dawn Oliver, who's doing great work in Iowa with the Iowa Women's Foundation, and Monique Ortega, who's bringing us some great perspective from her work with the Pathways program and establishing herself on a trajectory of economic success in the face of a lot of obstacles that we see depicted in these individuals in the film. So welcome, everyone. What I would like to do is give you each, first of all, just about a minute or two just to do your initial introduction and just to hear who you are, where you're from. If you want to share your pronouns, that would be great. And then we'll kick off this important conversation. So with that stated, Loira, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Thank you, Junemarie, and thank you to all the panelists. I'm looking forward to this conversation today. It's an honor to be here with all of you. Like Junemarie said, my name is Loira Limbal. I'm the director and producer of Through the Night. I am also a mom to two little people who are 8 and 10. And I am from the Dominican Republic, raised in New York City, and currently living and joining you all from San Juan, Puerto Rico, the ancestral lands of the Taino and Arawak peoples. Again, pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Dr. Amalia, would you like to go?
Sure. My name is Amalia Luxardo, she, her, ella. I'm a first-gen daughter of immigrant parents originally from Argentina. I kind of grew up all over the US. I actually went to undergrad in New York at St. John's, and I really, really miss New York City a lot. I am the mother of 2 children, a 7-year-old and a soon-to-be 1-year-old. And so if you hear some baby noises in the background, it's because the little guy has been homesick for a couple of days. And I think that's it for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Monique.
Well, obviously I'm Monique. I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, a mother of 2, a boy and a girl. I have a 6-year-old and a 8-year-old. And honestly, I'm just trying to better myself and become a better mother for them. And being here, it just really is eye-opening, and being around such strong, beautiful women, it really just inspires me more. So I'm just trying to continue the generation for my children so they can go to and get an education and know that it's not impossible and that they could do it as well. And my pronouns are she and her. And I'm very excited to be here. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you. And Dawn.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dawn Oliver Wiand, the president and CEO of the Iowa Women's Foundation. I've been with the Women's Foundation now in Iowa about 8 years. Prior to that, I was with the Women's Foundation of Kansas City for 8 years. So I have attended Women's Funding Network conferences for a number of years. And I'm excited to be a panelist today and to share with you a little bit more about our work around childcare and what we're doing in the state. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I mean, as we speak and as we watch this poignant film, Congress is determining whether to spend $450 billion on childcare as a part of their $3.5 trillion infrastructure package. So this would be the largest ever invested by federal funds in childcare programs. And this legislation would reduce childcare costs for low middle income families and also provide higher wages for childcare givers. Additionally, providing free pre-kindergarten to 3 and 4-year-olds. This is part of the Build Back Better plan. The under this framework, no family pays more than 7% of their income on childcare, which I know those of you, Amalia, Dawn, involved in this research know that that's a far cry from where families find themselves today. Additionally, childcare providers are paid a living wage, something that Loira is very passionate about, and we are all in support of. And families can find affordable and high quality childcare no matter where they live. So, and additionally, here in California, where I am, there's a bill currently on our governor's desk, which is around paid family leave. So these are issues that we all know are in the forefront, and they've become so prevalent and obvious during the COVID crisis. These fractures in our society have split wide open. And so we find ourselves at a policy moment, really. And if we don't take advantage of this policy moment, shame on us, right? So with that, I would like to ask each of you to share a bit about how your work is related to these issues and some of the incredible things that you're doing. So I'm going to begin. Let me just begin really quickly with Loira. Through the Night screened twice in New York with New York state legislators. And since then, the legislation has passed the most consequential budget for New York's children in recent memory, $2.4 billion. So my question is, did you set out to make an advocacy piece?
Yes and no. I'll start with the no. First, my point of departure was not policy or legislation. I was not, my target audience was not people outside of the immediate community that is depicted in the film. The starting point for wanting to make this film was I wanted to create an offering, a piece of art that could serve to heal us a bit. And the us that I'm speaking of is specifically Black and Latinx low income and working class communities. Because the film in many ways, it's not a personal film, but it is very closely tied to my personal story and my mother's personal story. So I set out to make a film for my mother, where she could see herself, her experience, through a different gaze, and through a gaze that was loving and tender and patient and curious about the everyday, because the experience of being a single working, mother of color in the United States is one where at every turn you're criminalized, right? Not only are things extremely difficult by design, so it's extremely difficult for you to survive, to provide, and even more so to thrive. But then you are constantly made to feel like something is wrong with you, the individual, as opposed to the system, right? Being at fault and responsible. And so my point of departure was really making something for the people in the film itself and for the communities that are depicted in the film, so that we could sort of re-signify for ourselves just how sort of radical and revolutionary it is to create and maintain these networks of care in the face of so much harm that we have, traditionally and historically experienced as people of color in this country. So that was my point of departure. Saying all of that, I also, deeply care about the material conditions, right, and about concrete change. And so I was making something that I hoped could be useful to activists and movement leaders, that they could use it as a tool to further the work that they're doing on the front lines of these things. So of these issues, I should say. So that's where it's a yes and no sort of answer for me.
Well, and I think that's absolutely what you've succeeded in doing. So we're grateful. Monique, perhaps you could share just a bit from your perspective, because that's exactly what Loira was mentioning, like the individuals like yourself who have been juggling and facing a lot of these barriers. I'm wondering, was there anyone in the film that or in the trailer that you feel yourself and your story is reflected in?
Sorry about that. No, well, honestly, as a single mom and a Latinx woman, it has definitely been hard. And you don't see that point of view when you're living that life, you know? You don't see, because it's every day. Like every day I get up, make sure my kids get to where they need to be, and make sure that I do what I have to do for them. And I don't think that we really take the time to process what's really going on, because for me, I just know it as like survival. For me, I know it as like, this is what I do every day, and I don't see like how people perceive me. And, you know, I don't see that because like it's really hard when you are trying to be a better woman and be a better mother and just continue to grow. And I think that I've struggled a lot, and by touching on the childcare as well. If I had childcare before, I probably would have went to school sooner, and I would have gotten an education a long time ago. And because of that, like, it's really hard now being older and having my kids and trying to get through it, because especially with COVID and everything that happened, I was still going to school. And then I didn't realize just like how significant what I was doing, because how significant it was because I didn't know, like, there's other women going through what I'm going through. I really didn't see it because, to be honest with you, I didn't get like the statistics of it once I started doing the panels with the Women's Foundation. That's when I realized this is like my reality. This is my life. And I never knew that because statistically, like, we have to work so much harder to raise our kids because we are just one person, you know? And I feel like from the film, like, as a mother's point of view, it just really just is eye-opening, because we don't get like recognition. We don't get like it's a thankless job. It really is, because we don't see what we're doing and how hard it really is, because we just keep going. We keep going. And as women, we just are strong. And I realize that when I come to these panels, and I realize that when I hear just how much we have gone through, and it really just makes me want to keep going and do it for my children and show them that they don't have to work as hard as I did, that they could get it and they can achieve those goals. And that I will be there to, how do I say, to cheer them on and to tell them that anything's possible, and as well as other single mothers, that anything is possible, because like, it feels like you're alone in this situation and that you don't know where to turn and you don't know what to do. And I feel like that was my that was really eye-opening when I started the Women's Foundation and did this program, because it gave me confidence and it made me realize that I can do these things, and I can be an educated woman, and I can, be a self-reliant, and I can do this for my kids and myself,
Yeah,
So really
and being a
eye-opening
champion, yeah, definitely. I mean, and being a champion for your kids and for other Latinx, Black and Brown women and women in general, I think that's deeply inspiring. And it does take sometimes that opportunity to sit with other people, other folks who are going through it, to realize that, wow, this is really something incredible that I'm experiencing that not everyone experiences.
No.
The intersectional challenges that I experience are really exaggerating the underlying issues. So thank you.
Yes.
Amalia, I was wondering, just to kind of turn to the work that you're doing with the Women's Foundation of Southern Arizona. I know you did some research, and you've looked at the financial hardship in the state and recognized that it's far more severe than the federal government's official policy guidelines and rates and statistics would suggest. I'm wondering if you can just speak to the outdated federal policy guidelines and your research to work to introduce more realistic measurements of the income needed to meet the basic needs. And I think you call it the self-sufficiency standard. So if you could share with us about that, that'd be great.
Sure, absolutely. So one of the impetus that really took us to that brought us to where we are today around our childcare work is the self-sufficiency standard research that we had partnered with the University of Washington. What we found is that lots of people, particularly women who are single mothers and have children at home, aren't getting paid livable wages. I'm not talking about worthy wages because that's a different conversation. I'm just talking about livable wages. And a lot of us are, when we think about livable wage, we think about that $15 an hour minimum wage that folks are pushing for. But I want to be really clear that even that is not enough. Loira, what really struck me in the film was the mom of the two young girls that was looking for a job that was hoping to combine all three of them into one. And then when she went to that job interview, what they had offered was $11 to $14 an hour, which I thought was criminal. I mean, you're talking about the cost of living in New York. And anything I imagine below $20 an hour is not enough for mom to live with two kiddos. And so just to give you some ballpark numbers, what we found here in Pima County, which is one of the more affordable counties in Arizona, mom with two kiddos with one under the age of 5 needs $18.29 an hour. So it's more than minimum wage. It's more than the $15 an hour that folks are advocating for. And it's in Arizona, and we're still considered a fairly affordable place to live, comparatively speaking. And so then when you're taking that information and comparing it to the federal poverty guidelines that have not been updated since 1965, when farming was still a hot commodity here in the United States, the numbers are completely skewed. And so on top of everything else that's been going on, what we've been finding is, let's suppose mom does get a job where she's making a livable wage, where she is receiving public benefits from the local welfare office. We call that here DES. It's the Department of Economic Security. I know that the names vary from state to state. What happens is that families will find themselves unable to take the raise, unable to take the promotion, and still remain in the margins. Why? Because the second they take that 50-cent increase, everything else goes away. Just like Nunu was saying, right? The state doesn't want to help. So the state completely throws you off this cliff, and any small amounts of supplemental nutrition assistance, what we commonly more known as food stamps, goes away, any access to medical benefits. And we all know that most jobs, just like portrayed in that film, don't offer medical benefits or don't offer enough hours so that they don't have to pay for the medical benefits. And so it's this vicious cycle of a system that's in play that almost makes you wonder on is it trying to keep us poor? Is it trying to keep us here? Is it set up against us as women? Is it set up against us as people of color? Because no matter which way you look at things, there's once you get over one hurdle, it's another one that you have to get over. But there's these other challenges that come behind it, and so you take a step forward and then you take 3 steps back. And again, I find that incredibly frustrating. I myself was a single mother with my 7-year-old at one point in my life, and I was in that situation, and I have the wherewithal to be able to articulate and advocate for myself. But I know that there are many families, just like Monique's and just like mine, where we're in survival mode all the time. And we don't have the time to think about how we're going to get to the next step, because we need to figure out how we're going to get through the day or get through tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think that's so on point. In regards to those challenges that these women are facing at the grassroots, I want to turn it over to Dawn for a moment. The Iowa Women's Foundation has done some really great community work and engaged with focus groups around the state. And you learn that almost half the communities that you looked at identified childcare as their number one priority. And then despite that, you also cited that almost a quarter of Iowans live in what's called a childcare desert. So I'm hoping you can shine some light on what that is and talk a bit about your community childcare solutions that you are implementing to challenge that.
Sure. Thank you, Junemarie. And I just want to say I've watched the film, and I would highly recommend anyone to please watch it. It is a really good film, and you won't be disappointed. I just want to also share with you that the Women's Foundation in Iowa uses research to guide our efforts. Quite honestly, almost all women's foundations do. That's one of the big parts of why I like working at a foundation. And back in 2015, we knew that 70% of Iowa's female head of households struggled economically. 70%. 40 were living below the federal poverty line, and another 30 were the working poor, or the women who were trying really, really hard to make ends meet, and just for one reason or another, they couldn't. To us, that was completely unacceptable, and we wanted to know why. And we wanted to know if that why was consistent across the state or different from community to community. We identified 18 communities all across the state. We traveled to those communities. We convened to the table stakeholders, and we asked why. Why are women and girls struggling in your community? From these conversations, we learned of the 6 barriers to success for women in our state: employment, childcare, housing, education and training, transportation, and mentorship. After that, we went back to those 18 communities. We presented the data, and we said, now, why? Which of these data do you want to work on? And which is the most important to you? Half of the communities chose childcare as their number one issue. Quite honestly, that shocked us. I thought we'd be looking at employment or education and training, but it was childcare. So we did what we do best. We went back and we looked at the research again. And we learned that there was a shortfall of over 350,000 slots across the state of Iowa. 1 in 2 children went without access to quality, affordable childcare. And 23% of Iowa lived in a childcare desert. And a childcare desert is an area where there are 3 children for every 1 slot available, and or there is no registered childcare center. Again, this was unacceptable, and we knew we needed to figure out how can we increase the availability of quality, affordable childcare, because we wanted women to be able to return to work and to become economically successful. And women aren't going to be able to do that if they can't have childcare. So we started the Building Community Childcare Solutions Collaborative, which is now a collaborative of 41 communities all across the state of Iowa, working to figure out ways to increase childcare and now support the childcare workforce. Because now we're finding that not only do we have a shortfall, but we also have many places with openings, but they don't have enough staff to provide the care, so they can't serve all of the children that they can serve. So now it's even been compounded more. And what we want to do is we want these solutions to be community driven, and we want them to be the most viable and doable for the communities. And the communities are the ones that know this. And so we are just there to be that collaborator, that convener, and that person to really says, let's share. So if you decide to do one thing in one part of the state that they decide to do in another, we're going to share resources, we're going to share tools, and we're going to help each other move the work forward. So that's what a childcare desert is, and that's how we're trying to address it with the Building Community Childcare Solutions work. Junemarie, thank you.
Thank you. I'm really inspired by the work both that each of you are doing, but I really am grateful for you for sharing that. Okay, so I'm going to turn back really quickly. Loira, I'm sorry. Loira, through this film, it's clear that women of color in particular, mothers, care workers, are just not valued in societally where they need to be. And I'm wondering if you have any insights or any, I guess, call to action in terms of changing these social norms and keeping, and elevating motherhood and elevating caregiving, and especially the burden that BIPOC women face with these unrealistic expectations of care. And unfortunately, the fact that that takes a toll on them personally, as we saw so poignantly with Nunu.
Yes, I think about the need for us to, as a country, to sort of shift the narratives that we have around these things. And I see art as a filmmaker, I go to art as a tool that is really effective at doing that, at like providing us different lenses through which we can look at something that we've always seen but understood only in one way. And so, I think often about the need for a lot more art, a lot more work around, just the sort of everyday lives of our communities. And certainly caregivers. I myself am personally obsessed with care, and feel like I'm probably going to make another 2 or 3 films related to the topic of care and motherhood and labor. It's kind of my intersection, is my thing. But I also think that even for folks, there's often the conversation about like, are we preaching to the choir, and we need to move beyond the choir, and the whole choir, right, conversation. And I actually think that the choir needs a lot more kind of alignment. We need more practices. We need rehearsals. We need better uniforms. I think there's a lot of work to be done within the choir, if you will. And part of that, I think, is looking to the very folks who this is their lived experience, looking to them for leadership, not simply to sort of provide, the anecdote or to inform, right? I see Nunu and Patrick, Dawn was talking about community-led solutions, right, and strategies. Nunu and Patrick, as one family, have functioned as an entire safety net to an entire community for over 2 decades, right? They are providing childcare, but they're also standing in the gap when one of their families is facing food insecurity or housing insecurity. They're mentoring people. They're advocating on behalf of people. They're doing so much. So to me, like, they're the experts. They actually know what people need and also how to provide it for them, because they have been providing this kind of support for an entire community, not because of, governmental support, actually despite it, right? Or often having to work around the many, hurdles that Amalia was mentioning, right? They're helping people figure out how to navigate these really sharp edges of this very broken and cruel system that we are living in. So it's like, look to them, they are the leaders, they are the experts. And I think we could gain a lot in terms of our movements if we started to center them as just that, as experts and leaders, because I think there's a way that our movements often replicate mainstream ideas of what leadership looks like, how leadership presents, how leadership talks, how leadership dresses, right? And we fall and replicate these, mainstream norms to our own detriment. So
Amen.
that's a call to action to us.
I love it. No, honestly, I think that you couldn't have stated that any more beautifully and led into this next question, because it is centering the leadership at the grassroots and the insight that comes with the lived experience that is so valuable and should be informing how the work we do forward. So with that stated, I want to turn back to Monique. Monique, in terms of your leadership journey, we're really looking to individuals like yourself who have that firsthand experience. So I'm wondering about if you can just quickly talk about one or two of the barriers, and then just about your leadership journey and how you found your way to Pathways, what that's meant for you stepping into your own empowerment.
So I honestly want to start when I was living in Phoenix about like 2 years ago or so, almost 3 years now. And it was really hard because it's very expensive out there. And that's a barrier. Rent, a 1-bedroom was like almost $900. And it was an okay neighborhood, I would say. But when you're a single mom and you don't have any financial support from your children's father, and you are, just trying to get by. And at the time I was, childcare was a barrier. It was a huge barrier for me because I knew I wanted an education. I just didn't know how to get it. And I tried everything. There was programs in Phoenix, and I was doing one of them where I would go to school and I would do a paid internship at the same time. And I still would have to pay for childcare and pay rent. And that was hard. I don't think I honestly, financially, I couldn't even afford to live there. And eventually I had to move to Tucson where it's cheaper. And I had to move in with my mom in a 1-bedroom with my 2 kids. And I felt like really just defeated. I had transportation, but I mean, in reality, like having transportation but no income and just trying to get by and doing all these things was just impossible for me. And at that time, you needed to either be working to get childcare, or you couldn't go to school. And that was like the hardest thing, because I wanted an education. I knew I wanted that, but I just didn't know how to get it. And there was no programs like this out there for women, single moms specifically. It was more for just like anybody who would want to get an education, or like, they'll pay for it. So it really wasn't like for women like me going through situations like mine. It was more for just like a general, like, anybody could do it.
And how did you find it? How did you come to find Pathways?
Honestly, so I had started just like, I was telling my mom, I need to do something. Like I can't keep doing the same cycle, the same thing over and over again. It's like I don't want to be struggling. I don't want to be depending on my abusive ex-boyfriend anymore. I wanted to leave that situation. So I didn't want to go back to him, and I didn't want to be I wanted to be financially stable, and I knew that. And my mom, she works with the merge, and she's honestly like, she was really trying to help me to find what I needed. And she gave me a flyer, and it had something about the single moms, if they wanted to get an education and they wanted to basically they were saying that they'll help you financially as well while you are trying to get your education. And that was like a big thing for me, because I couldn't do both. I was trying to do like work and do both, and that just really didn't work out because of the childcare. So I was like, what can I do? And then I didn't know anything about the program. I didn't know anything about what was going on. I just knew that I didn't want this life anymore. I just knew that was my my ticket out of this situation.
Wow. Well, kudos to you for finding your way there and getting yourself established on your feet.
That was the start. And then that was it. Like, now I feel more confident, and you guys just giving me the opportunity, just giving me more confidence that I could do it. So thank you guys. our ladies.
No, thank you. You're the trailblazers. We're just kind of looking and trying to see how we can contribute to the movement that's happening on the ground with all these strong women who are leading the way, and the sacrifices that you've made to do that. And I think that's incredible. I hope we can circle back around to some more of this. I want to get to a couple of the other questions that we have here, because Amalia, I know you did some really incredible research too, about the single moms and higher educations, and in your advocacy you also talk about like reimagining the public benefit system permanently to remove people from poverty. And I definitely want to get to that and understand what's your vision for that and how you see that.
That is a very loaded question. So I'll start by talking a little bit about our latest win that's in the works. And so just to give folks some context, what we keep on referring to as Pathways is Pathways for Single Mothers. It has a much longer technical name, but it's a program that Monique is one of the original participants in one of our cohorts, where we provide wraparound services for single mothers in order for them to go to school full time while simultaneously taking care of their childcare, providing emergency stipends, and any other financial resources that they may need that would typically be an impediment from stopping mom from going to school, because we all know that life is not one dimensional. It's very much a lot of other things going on at once. And we all know, especially as mothers, whether we have resources or not, that we have a lot of things to juggle every single day with our kiddos. And so what we've done is work with our legislators to pass the bill HB 2016 that passed this year, so that mom is able to go to school full time and still be eligible for childcare subsidy. In a previous iteration, our laws required mom to work 20 hours a week, at least 20 hours a week at a job, which we can all just name here. That was more than likely a dead-end job, as we've seen in the film. That really wasn't providing, again, that livable wage that families need in order to survive. And so our goal was to get these families out of the cycle of poverty, is break that cycle of generational poverty as soon as possible, so that, as Monique mentioned, so that the new life is able to begin. And so now families have the option. We've done this all with a gender lens, as we are the Women's Foundation, but we all know that when we're helping women and girls, everybody wins. And so now all families that are enrolled to receive childcare subsidies are able to have the option of either continuing to work at their current place of employment or go to school full time with very specified career tracks. We've identified 36 career tracks that are going to do really well over the next 5 years. And they're largely male-dominated fields where women typically don't even think about going into. I know that Monique, for example, is in logistics and supply chain management, right? She's doing a dual major, which is more than impressive. And I'm sure that lots of us as women haven't ever thought about getting into a field like that. And so it's making sure that we are providing the resources. Again, it's a wraparound services program, so that we can we're not only helping moms, but we're also helping the children. And again, breaking that cycle of generational poverty. And so that's our latest win on our advocacy front. Right now, that program is only for folks that are already eligible for that benefit, for that child care subsidy. But our goal is to eventually demonstrate to the state that this is something that works, that it's sustainable, that it's a win really for the state, because with every family that gets off public benefits, the state is going to be saving tens of thousands in the short term, but millions in the long term, and boosting our economy, because families are going to have the financial means to be able to support themselves. I just want to reiterate, the cost of childcare, and I imagine that this is across the board, is exorbitant. The average one-bedroom apartment here in Tucson costs $836, and that was as of about a year and a half ago, pre-pandemic. I imagine the prices are going to go up just like they have everywhere else. And childcare costs anywhere between $1,000 and $1,200 a month for one kiddo. And so the expectation historically has been that somehow mom with a low wage paying job has to not only pay for her expenses, for her rent, for the food, but also for the childcare that costs more than all of those things combined. And so again, what we've been trying to do on a policy level is figure out a way where we can bridge the gap between some of those things and take some of the weight off of our parents' shoulders so that they're able to focus on moving the needle for their families.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I so appreciate the advocacy work, because I think that's how we get to kind of challenging the structures that are keeping those cycles in place. And you talked about loss, the incredible loss and the cost of this problem with childcare. Dawn, I know that you have worked and done research and brought some incredible information to the business community. You had estimated, or your research had estimated, something like $935 million to the Iowa economy every year that is cost by this dearth of childcare. I'm wondering if you can talk about how your work with the private sector, because you've done some really good strategic sorts of initiatives and partnerships to leverage the private sector in this as a stakeholder in this. So take it away.
Yeah, thank you. So in Iowa, we know we have a childcare crisis. We also have a workforce shortage. And we truly believe that both of those issues are interdependent and related to each other, and you have to address them together. But before we could get the businesses or our elected officials or people to even think about childcare, we had to reframe the message. Because let's face it, childcare used to be, or in many places still is, considered a family issue. And the family needs to take care of it. And in most cases, it's the woman in that family that needs to take care of it. That's just not the case. Childcare is an economic issue. It is a business issue, and we need to frame it that way. And so we started talking about that 4 years ago, and then COVID hit. And quite honestly, COVID, if it had any kind of silver lining, is that it did shine a light on childcare and did show that it is impacting businesses. The National Chamber of Commerce Foundation released a report in February of 20 called Iowa's Untapped Potential. That report focused on the amount of money that was being lost every year to the Iowa's economy because of childcare issues. We were able to take that report, sit down with business leaders and say, look how much money you're losing because of childcare. We're talking about recruitment and retention dollars. We're talking about work productivity loss. If you would take a little bit of money, invest it into childcare solutions, it's going to turn around and hit your bottom line a lot better and help with those kind of expenses. So we established the Iowa Business and Childcare Coalition, which is a group of business leaders from some of the 20 top companies in our state. These are individuals who see it, who get it, who've made an investment in childcare or who want to make an investment in childcare, who put together a toolkit for business leaders to look at. And it provided them again with what are some of those investments that a business can make into childcare. It can be something as simple as flexible work arrangements, flexible spending account, all the way up to providing backup care, providing emergency care, an on-site center. Or let's think about partnerships. How can we partner with those local centers and those local in-home providers? And so what we're doing now is really going into communities and sharing these ideas and bringing everybody to the table and talking about how can the private sector, along with philanthropy, along with our elected officials, really come up with solutions to address the childcare shortage so more women and more people can go to work and address the workforce shortage.
Great. Incredible. We have just a few minutes left, and I want to make sure that if there are any questions, I encourage folks to put them in the chat. Would love to invite you to ask the panelists questions. We have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to go on to the next question, but if something pops up, please put it in the chat. So I want to just touch back to Amalia, the work on legislative advocacy, because I think it's something that we don't often associate with women's foundations and funds. And I think that's in one of the strengths that you talk about is this research, and you've done some work with the governor directly. And how do those relationships work, and how important is that, and how do you see women's funds kind of being that voice?
Yeah, I think that women's funds over the last several years have changed dramatically in their role. I'm thinking back to our plenary session where we're not just about charity, we're about change, right? I think we've really flipped those things around as far as women's funds go. And to touch a little bit on the research, like Dawn said, most women's funds, if not all of us, are really driven by research. I think the really important thing to consider, and this is likely true for everyone as well, is that our research isn't just numbers, it's actually the lived experience. There are folks like Monique who are behind the data points. We make sure at the Women's Foundation of Southern Arizona that our research is actually vetted by women who have the lived experience to tell us whether or not those numbers are accurate. That's incredibly important because researchers can sit in an office all day long and spit out numbers, and it doesn't mean anything unless it actually reflects the community and what's happening in that community. And so I think that's something that's really important to keep in mind as women's funds produce the research, is that more than likely we've been able to vet that with community. And so not only is quantitatively the information accurate, but it's also accurate qualitatively. And so you have both the numbers and the narrative that tell the story with what's going on in that particular women's fund or foundation. We've been really fortunate with our executive office here. So we actually have a lobbying firm that works with us, and they're the ones that have been able to really foster that relationship both with the governor and with our representatives. And so we work hand in hand in order to make things happen at the Capitol. And so we're not doing this in a silo. We're not doing this on our own. We seek the right people that have been in the political game for a really long time, that know what the landscape is. And again, it's really the fact that we've been research driven that has been getting us the wins. It's because of the way that our legislature is set up. A lot of the folks, what matters to them is the bottom line. And so we've been able to do that with our research. And the bottom line is, just like Dawn said, is that childcare is not a family issue. It is an economic issue. COVID brought that to light. We lost 30 years of employment gains in a year, which is still astounding to me. There were women that were leaving the workforce twice as fast as men were. Why? Because we were the ones that had to figure out childcare, because still, even after all of these years, for whatever reason, we're still the ones that have to bear the burden of all of that. And so not only at this point are we expected to do all the work, figure out the childcare, there was also all of the responsibilities around the household that were compounded, that the expectation is for the woman to take care of it. And so that is what, again, as Dawn was saying, if there was any sort of silver lining to the pandemic, is really opening up the eyes of everyone to how much of an impact childcare has on our economy. And now what can we do in order to rebuild the workforce for women in mind? And that first critical piece is getting childcare.
Great. Thank you. There's a question in the chat. Ellen was asking whether the film will be shown on PBS and where childcare advocates might have access to it for screening. Loida, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. So the film aired on PBS in May already, and there was a 1 month free streaming window, which ended already, unfortunately. But at the link that I just put in the chat, you can request a screening as a grassroots organization or just regular folks interested in organizing a community screening. And the film is also available to stream on Amazon. So it is currently available, just not on PBS anymore.
Okay, as we just have 4 minutes left, I'd like to do a quick lightning round. And I just want to turn it back to Monique to lead us in this lightning round. Just like 1 or 2 sentences, what do you want people to take away from this panel or to know?
Well, just that as single moms, like, we are more than just numbers, you know? We are real people with real problems, and they need to be addressed. And as single moms, we can do anything. So just putting that out there, you know, just don't give up on yourselves if, you know, you feel like you're going through this as well.
Great. And thank you for like stepping into like logistics and all of those spaces that we really need that representation.
Yes.
Okay. Amalia.
I would say that a couple of my takeaways would be that if you have a local women's fund or foundation to get involved, we're really entrenched with the community. We try to collaborate with our nonprofit partners that are doing the work to move the needle, and I think that's something that's really important. And to get involved. To get involved either at a grassroots level or a policy level with your local folks, because as daunting as all of this seems, little changes are what's going to pave the way.
Great. Dawn.
Childcare is an economic issue. It is a barrier to women's economic success. We need to work together. So I challenge you to please tell 3 people what you heard today. And as Amalia said, get involved and help us. We have to work together to solve this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Loida, do you want to bring us home?
I would want for folks to think about the necessity and just how essential art and, sort of selfishly speaking, film is to our experience as human beings, but also in furthering social issues. I feel like this panel is a great example of the intersections between research, art, and culture in terms of shifting narratives and really centering the lived experiences of folks. Like Monique said, to not be seen solely as numbers or statistics, right? But complete human beings with complexity like we all have, which I think is something that we need a lot more of. We can't get enough of that. So I would, just encourage folks to support the arts and the role of arts and culture in social change.
Wonderful. Well, I thank you all so very much for your time and wisdom, lived experiences, your willingness to share, and I appreciate you being a part of today's conference. And with that, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and onwards to equity. Thank you so much.